Hi, everybody. Oh, everyone's popping in right at the same time. Good to see all you guys. All right, I'm going to pull up my slides. That probably means you won't be able to see me anymore, but I'm still here. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So hopefully you are in the right spot and you were planning on learning about encouraging change. If you're not in the right spot, I hope you'll stick around because you'll probably find this content helpful at some point in your life. So for the next hour, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the work that I had the pleasure and the privilege of learning back when I was working as a behavior modification coach at the VA. I was a part of a research study, and we were basically looking at how is it that we can support people when they are on the journey of change. How does it work when the change was sort of determined by themselves, and how does it work when someone else said to them, this has to happen? What are the ways that we can support people in either version of the change path? So I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about some of the work that we used. We used a framework called the trans-theoretical model, and we used some evidence-based approaches called motivational interviewing. You're going to learn a little bit about that today, as well as the mindful improv methodology that I teach my clients as they are doing the hard work of creating cultures that represent their values. So just real quick, a little bit about who I am. Hello, slides. Now's a good time to start working. There it is. That's me. My name is Andrea Flack-Wetherald. I'm the owner of And Beyond and andbeyondimprov.com. And I'm the creator of Mindful Improv Methodology, where I've basically taken what is meaningful and beautiful about mindfulness practice and what is meaningful and beautiful about improvised comedy and sandwiched that stuff together to create a really unique approach to building cultures that look like our values consistently. And usually that has a lot to do with leaders knowing how to be in alignment consistently and knowing how to navigate confrontation, navigate self-advocacy, and really kind of be consistent, be unwavering in the way that they stand behind their values, even when it comes to delicate situations like the ones many of you find yourselves in, of needing to give accountability and feedback to someone who is either feedback averse or you've just been kind of stuck in a cycle with them for a long time. So I'm the creator of Mindful Improv Methodology. Everything that I do is about helping heart-centered humans lead lives and companies that consistently reflect their core values. So that's a little bit about me. But let's also talk about who you are, because if you are spending time on this webinar with me this morning, then there's a few things that I already know about you. One is that you are a really committed culture advocate. You're here in the middle of a global pandemic. There's a lot of things you could be doing with your time right now, and you've decided to invest it in figuring out how you can rectify a really frustrating and difficult situation, and that's awesome. Thank you so much. I am honored by your commitment to being here. And I'm really excited to spend this time with you and answer any of your questions. Leaders like you guys are the ones that give me hope for the future of the culture of work. So I really appreciate that you're here with me. I also know that you're sick to death of being stuck in a cycle of repeatedly giving somebody feedback, trying your darndest to implement new HR policies. Maybe you've made some attempts at team building. I don't know who all is joining right now, but some of you might even be my own clients who have brought me or someone from my team in to lead like an improv team building thing. Maybe kind of hoping that we would say just the right thing and somehow this person would hear it and it would be the silver bullet to creating the change that you're looking for. Maybe you've been proactive about offering training opportunities to this person, but you are sick to death of being stuck in this cycle because you are not getting any lasting results. I also know that you are clear on the urgency of delivering on culture promises consistently. And I know that if you are here, you are on the same page with me in understanding that engagement is something that is earned. Retention is something that is earned. And the way that you earn it is by being unwavering in how you stand behind your values, especially when it comes to that one or two people that just cannot seem to get in line with that culture vision, no matter how diligently you work to propagate, building a culture that reflects your values, building a culture that's emotionally safe and inclusive, and just kind of authentically collaborative and inclusive like that. So there's two key questions that we're going to be addressing this morning. The first one is, why has this person not changed? I know sometimes people come to me and they're like, am I just not good at this? Like, have I just not found the right words? Am I not being vulnerable enough? Am I being, overly forceful? What am I doing wrong is the question. Why hasn't this person changed? And then the second question is, how can I support this process more effectively? And I love that you're asking that question, because once again, as leaders, we really don't have the luxury of kind of sitting back and being like, well, it's good everywhere else at the company, or there's some companies that are worse than ours, so that makes it okay, right? Or trying to like overcompensate at Christmas time. These are all things that I've heard. That just doesn't work. We have to stand behind our values, even if there's social politics involved, even if it just feels tricky to confront this person. So here's the shift. This is the number one shift I'm going to ask you guys to make. And then all of the tactics and the strategies that we talk about today are in support of this mental shift. So instead of progressive discipline, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. I know those words, some people really, really believe in this, and that's okay. That's okay. It works sometimes, but for now, we're not going to be talking about progressive discipline. We're not going to be talking about avoidant optimism, and we are certainly not talking about exerting force through ultimatums and, telling this person, look, this is where the rubber meets the road. You got to change or you got to get out. We're going to be exploring a different approach than those things. So instead of that, we're going to make a shift to dynamic accountability. So let's talk about both of those words, dynamic accountability. I got freaked out when these words came to me, and I was like, pacing through my house, like, who can I tell? And my house is full of like children and dogs and nobody that could be excited with me. So dynamic accountability, dynamic, first of all, instead of looking to a script, instead of looking to a discipline rubric, instead of trying to figure out what are the perfect words that I can say, what is the appropriate, perfect thing to say right now, instead of looking to a script or looking somewhere else, you are present in this moment and realizing, it really doesn't matter how we've always done it. It really doesn't matter how we did it at a past company when I was in a similar situation. What's happening right now? What will serve this scene partner, this scene, as we say in improv, what will serve what's happening right now the best? So dynamic, okay? We're in the present moment and we're shifting and pivoting accordingly. And then accountability. So I really like this shift to the idea of accountability instead of just discipline. It's very easy if someone is behaving in a way that is not professional or not conducive for, the most effective collaboration, to get stuck on punishment or consequences or, trying to scare them straight or just in some way arm wrestle them back into compliance. And what I want to talk about instead is this idea of accountability. And, when we talk about accountability, I don't think we can really talk about that without also talking about self-efficacy, which is, this idea that people can and want to change. And I don't know how many of you guys subscribe to that Mamba mentality thinking, but, of course, Kobe Bryant is someone that's been on people's minds over the last few months. And, this idea of get better every day has been, I don't know if it's permeated your LinkedIn accounts, but it certainly has mine. And, I really think that speaks to self-efficacy. And I think that there are more people than we realize that are asking themselves those questions. And quite often when I bring this up, this idea that it is safe to trust that somebody wants to get better and that they're trying, even if you can't see it. When I am in the situation I prefer to be in, which is like in a live room full of real human people, I can see the rolled eyes, I can feel the tension, and it's not uncommon for people to raise their hand and be like, okay, but I'm talking about an a-hole though. Like, you're talking about someone that's different than who I'm talking about. I'm talking about a legit bully. And what I want to tell you is this: you don't know what happens between this person and the universe when they are alone at night trying to figure out, how am I doing? How am I doing on this planet? You don't know the work that they're doing, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. The very most important parts of the germination process, for a plant to be something that you can see, the most important parts happen below the surface before anybody can see them. And if that growth, if that change weren't happening, a tree could never grow, right? These things happen below the surface and they matter. So don't get discouraged. And I'm going to ask you to just make this mental shift with me to dynamic accountability. Okay. So here are the objectives of dynamic accountability. Objective 1, this person willfully participates in the problem identification and solution finding process. That's number 1. Number 2, a solution is actually executed upon. And number 3, a change is maintained. These are the objectives, okay? These are the results that you are likely looking for, and that's why you are participating in this webinar. Okay, so let's get into this first question. Why hasn't this person changed? So there's a couple of things that are often kind of at the core of the answer. Why has this person not changed? First of all, it could be that they are lacking independent ownership. So when we approach the change is necessary conversation, and what has happened is we've talked all about their behavior and the problems and how frustrating it is with our significant other or somebody else at work, the HR director, somebody else, and we've accumulated a list of the problems and we've articulated, these are the most salient points that we'll make sure we say, these are the consequences. And then, you know, we get in the room with this person, we just kind of hand them an outline and you're like, can you sign this? This is going in your file. I see this happen at the hands of very smart, very well-intentioned leaders. And the reason that they do it is they're trying to be organized. They're uncomfortable. They're trying to, you know, make the best use of this time. They don't want to cry. They don't want to be overbearing. And so they feel like doing it this way is the best way to keep things moving productively. So it comes from a very well-intentioned place. It's just that what we know from the body of research that exists about behavior modification when it is successful is that somebody needs independent ownership. So they need more involvement with solution development. And when we do that, first of all, we avoid being infantilizing and condescending, which is really, really important. But second of all, we're actually setting ourselves up for success. So when I am teaching my clients this work, you know, this how to do this in their culture consistently, the trick here is that you'll have an easier time building like that instead of handing somebody everything and walking into the scene. In improv, we have this lovely expression, bring a brick, not a cathedral. And what that means is you don't write the entire plot that's about to happen and hand it to everybody else on stage. You walk onto the stage with one simple, clear, malleable, actionable idea, and you offer it as a gift to your scene partner, and then they add something and you add something, and you build whatever it's going to be together. There is so much freedom, you guys, in approaching these conversations like that, but it happens easiest when you don't wait until there's a litany of behaviors. So there really is some time sensitivity in making this part of it more effective. And if we had days and days, I would get way more down into that idea. But for our purposes this morning, understand that you're going to get more bang for your buck when you have more of their involvement in the solution development. The other thing is that there's often more change support needed. So I call this integrated plan making. We're going to get more into this in just a minute. But sometimes their behavior is pointing at other opportunities for change, other processes that could be improved, other ways of running feedback to the appropriate places before they're like bursting at the seams and shouting at people or, you know, kicking doors in at meetings and whatever the undesired behavior is. Sometimes it is pointing at other opportunities, other things that can be changed. But the difference is, please hear this, if you just try to figure out what those are independently without checking in with this person and having this awkward but honest and necessary conversation, if you're just guessing what those things are and then trying to make plans and hoping that those things will solve the problem, it won't. We need to be in the room and having this really vulnerable conversation. Those changes that you've been making might be appropriate changes to make, but we need to have connected the dots with this person. Number 2, lack of independent understanding. So this person needs to be connected to the why. They need to be able to articulate their own why. Why is their behavior, their attitudes, whatever it is that they're doing, why does that prevent the growth that they independently want? They need to connect their own why about the problem, but also about their vision for the future. What do they want? How can we make sure that they realize that this change serves their purposes? We're going to talk more about that in a minute. So here is the number one reason, though. The number one reason why culture advocates are not getting the results that they want from these conversations is this. The feedback is not delivered in congruence with the fractious person's readiness to change. Okay, so we're going to read that one more time. The feedback is not being delivered in congruence with this person who needs to change. It's not being communicated to them in congruence with their readiness to change. Now, you might be asking, what does that mean? So this is where we get into the trans-theoretical model. So go ahead and screenshot this if you want to do some more Googling later. This is an absolutely transformative way of thinking about change. It was developed by social scientists named Prochaska and DiClemente. They have done extensive research and they have produced extensive work on this topic. And I've really just learned so much from them. So the trans-theoretical model is an understanding of how people change, what is happening in their brains, what is happening to them when they walk the path of behavior modification. So I'm going to show you something that they've developed called the stages of change model. And what I want you to understand is that your job in these conversations, in these first change invitation conversations, we'll call them, is not to get this person doing what you need to be doing. More effectively, what you should be doing is listening for where are they in the readiness to change model and then coach them to the next bucket. So let me show you what I mean. The very first bucket is pre-contemplation. This is where people start out. When they are at this stage in the process, there is no intention of changing behavior yet. The next bucket is contemplation, which is where they become aware that a problem exists, but there's not any commitment to change yet. There's not any like planning behavior or anything like that. Sometimes we call this stage ambivalence. And this is a really important wall to break through. This wall of, well, that's just my personality is something that I hear. Oh, well, people from his generation, blah, blah, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Maybe you've heard that. That is ambivalence language. When people are talking like that, oh, I've been like that for years or whatever. Oh, that's just my sense of humor. Don't mind me. That is ambivalence, okay? That's ambivalence language. You're not going to get anywhere trying to coach someone who is ambivalent to the finish line. What can you do instead, you might be wondering? Coach them to the next bucket. So the next bucket is preparation. And don't worry, I'll give you examples of how to do that. So preparation is where we're intent upon taking action. Back in my smoking cessation coaching days, the idea was you don't just expect someone to walk out of the office and quit. It's like, let's decide on a quit day. What are the logistical things we can put in place to set you up for success? If there was pharmacotherapy involved, let's make sure your prescriptions are ordered for nicotine lozenges or patches or whatever. Talk to your friends, find an accountability partner, etc. That's preparation. Action, quit day. This is where the change actually gets implemented. Next is maintenance, where the change is being sustained. New behavior replaces old. And then relapse. We fall back into old patterns of behavior. Now, please hear this, because people who have spent years and years and years studying human behavior understand that relapse is a part of the process. It's a part of the process. Relapse is not anything to be afraid of. It's not anything to see someone fall back into old patterns of behavior and be like, ugh, they have no regard for my authority, or they didn't care about what we said at all. It's clearly not important to them. That's the way we treat it, right? Especially, when I talk with clients and we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of how to build a culture that reflects their values. So often it's like, we got to talk about progressive discipline, because if you're treating people, and this is not about the minutia of put the stapler back in the drawer, guys. This is about the real stuff with culture, right? This is about the real stuff. And when we treat people who are they're whole people, they are walking into their office carrying with them past traumas, past templates of bad leadership, past experiences. And we know this. Somewhere in our brains, we know this. Yet we forget, because we're expecting change to be linear. We're expecting that somehow, we will have this conversation with them about their tone when they're emailing, or the way that they are struggling to delegate appropriately, or their lack of trust, or whatever it is. We're expecting that we will talk with them about it, and then they will maintain perfect behavior. And if not, oh, there's another strike. Oh, further down the progressive discipline line, instead of understanding this is a part of the process. So please hear this. When we in the world of of the trans theoretical model, like this work is mainly taught to people who work in medicine, who work in the helping professions. There is an understanding that this is how it works. And so when we are coaching people for change, for sustainable change, we're not just telling them, you have to do this because otherwise you're going to die. And so here are some nicotine patches. The next time I see you, you better not be smoking, or I'm going to be disappointed. That's not it. It's like, let's create an action, a maintenance, and a relapse plan. Do you hear that? We create a plan for action, maintenance, and relapse, because it's just a thing that we count on happening. We understand that it's a part of the problem. And here's the best part. Every single relapse, and you see how it's even written, relapse, another cycle around. Some people call it recycle. It's an upward spiral. We learn every single time. We learn new things. And it's not the case that you're necessarily jumping right back into pre-contemplation with no intention of changing behavior. You're likely jumping right back into action again, at least if you learn how to treat this in a way where people aren't entering into a shame spiral, which is a whole different spiral, right? We don't want that. If we treat relapse like it's an understandable part of the behavior change process, then we'll know how to hold someone accountable and get them right back into action instead of waffling back in ambivalence or, people feeling like they've proven to themselves that they're not capable, which is not true. We just accept relapse. So that's the model. That's what it looks like. Once again, Prochaska and DiClementi, please do Google them and learn even more. So here's the key takeaways. First of all, coach to the next bucket, not to the finish line. And how we do that is we find out what they care about most. So when we enter in the conversation, there's going to be some examples of this later, and we make it our mission to approach with curiosity. These are words that people who follow my work or who have done some client work with me, they hear me say that a lot, approaching with curiosity. That is such a huge shift, and it requires more faith than it sounds like, because basically I'm asking you to believe me that when you approach with curiosity instead of an agenda, you're going to find a gold mine of what is in this person's way. And if you ascribe to the servant leadership model at all, then you know one of the most effective ways to lead is by figuring out what the obstacles are and how you can move those obstacles out of someone's way. So the way that we do that is approaching with curiosity. Find out what they care about most. And then the next thing is establish a shared why. Figure out how to cultivate some meaningful common ground on what they care about the most and how making a change serves that purpose well. And then don't misinterpret relapse, okay? It's not a direct affront to everything that you believe in. It is not this person saying, I don't care about culture. It is simply a natural part of the way that people navigate the process of behavior modification. All right, so now I want to share with you a little bit about mindful improv methodology. And I just want to pause right here to make sure everyone is clear on what improv is, because it never ceases to amaze me how often people think of improv and they think of Saturday Night Live or they think of stand-up. Those are other forms of live comedy, but improv is a form of live comedy where everything is made up on the spot. So it's more similar to what you may have seen if you've ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, is a pretty ubiquitous example. So just a clarification there, that's what improv is. And it turns out that the same exact skills that make improv successful on stage make cultures successful off stage too. So let me tell you what I mean by that. The basis of all of improv is this idea of yes and. So maybe you've heard these words before, and if not, were you to take an improv class, this is one of the first things that they would teach you. Now, I have been teaching this stuff in corporate settings for years, and I'm very aware that when people hear these words, they're like, ugh, another starry-eyed millennial with a bunch of theoretical mumbo jumbo that's not going to get me anywhere, because in real life, quote unquote, I can't say yes to everything, right? So if you're feeling that way right now, you can be forgiven. And the truth is that yes and is a much more nuanced concept than what meets the eye. Yes and is about vulnerability. It's about what it takes to really collaborate with someone. And if you were to take an improv class, you'd really hear that. But for our purposes, this is what I want you to know. You can also hear these words as the basis of all improv being equal parts humility and courage. Humility and courage. I hope you guys will just take a second to write that down and really, really think about that. Because what I'm telling you is that in order for improv to work. An entire world is made up right before your very eyes. There's not a script. There is no one that's going to save you. The lights go down, they come back up, and everything that happens in that amount of time, you just have to deal with it. I have experienced all manner of bizarre things. I mean, drunk people heckling from the audience, bottles breaking, smoke detectors going off. I've been kicked in the face. I also truthfully kicked someone else in the face one time. You just do not know what's going to happen. And there's no one that's going to save you. And so you have to decide, this is not, no matter what happens, we will find a way forward together. Okay. I hope you're seeing some parallels here. And the way that we do that is with humility first. The humility to believe the people around me are worth collaborating with. Maybe I've seen them get it wrong before. Maybe they have already proven to me that the ways in which they are imperfect. That's okay. That's okay. I can build something amazing with someone who is imperfect. The humility to know that really good ideas can come from anywhere. Maybe you are a more experienced improviser. Maybe you do have more experience or whatever. Maybe you're even a more skilled improviser. But at the end of the day, really good ideas that can take the scene where it needs to go can come from imperfect people. Okay, so there's this humility piece. And then the second piece is courage, because it's not enough to, sit back and watch everybody else build the scene. And sometimes really well-intentioned people do that because they're like, I don't want to break it, or I don't know what to say right now. Or it's just going to make it worse, or this is just how it is. There's no need to slow down the meeting or whatever. So humility and courage, we need both in equal measure. And when we do that, we do this listen, build, dance. And that's how you build an improv scene. That is the core of improv right there. Listen and build in equal measure. And there are 5 core skills that I'm teaching people as often as anyone will listen to me, that are the core of how we do this. And the first one is choose curiosity over judgment. Guys, this skill right here, if you go on my website, this is on my homepage. Choose curiosity over judgment. As often as you can be proactive about that, it is going to serve your purpose as well. So here's another way to hear this. Choose curiosity over certainty. Because some people hear the word judgment and they're like, whoa, I'm not a judgy person. I'm an open-minded person. But choose curiosity over certainty. So hear this. Maybe you feel stuck at an impasse with this person. And so your inclination is maybe not to say the feedback that you would say if you were not certain that this person can't change, or if you weren't certain about, quote unquote, what kind of person you're dealing with. So choose curiosity instead of certainty. What does your scene partner see here? Very few people wake up and just decide to burn their company to the ground with a bad attitude, right? They perceive something that you don't perceive. Their behavior is about something. What is it about? What is your scene partner trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? Maybe their behavior is decidedly off-putting, but what are they trying to accomplish? How can you see this from your scene partner's perspective? That's what this is about. Choose curiosity over judgment. Number 2, maintain faith in your scene partner. I could talk about this for forever, and I won't, because we are 30 minutes in and I want to respect your time. But maintaining faith in your scene partner means this. You are going to look for ways that they are capable instead of looking for proof that they are not. Okay, I want you to really hear that. You are going to decide that you will look for ways that they are capable instead of looking for proof that they are not. Because guess what? When I come in and I work with people, it's super, super common that the first couple times I'm on site, people are like, I know who the problem is here. Do you want to read this email that he sent? I'll prove it to you. I'll prove to you. It's not us. It's him. Let me show you this email that he sent. And I'm like, nope, I don't need to see the email. I believe you. I believe that he has given you evidence that he was not professional. I believe you that he was hurtful. I'm not denying anyone's reality. I'm just here to remind you that your scene partner is more than the worst things about them. Okay. We are all more than the worst parts of who we are, and we all need grace for the journey. So maintain faith in your scene partner. Imperfect people can build amazing things together. And in fact, they do that every day. Okay, stay present in this moment. This moment is where the opportunity is to build something amazing. So if you are navigating change motivating conversations and you are feeling tons of anxiety about all the things that will have to happen if this person doesn't change, and you're stuck in, what is it going to feel like to have to fire this person? What is it going to feel like when half their department quits? What is it going to feel like if these things don't change and we don't get the investments that we need, or whatever it is, we lose a big account? Fear of the future. If you're stuck there, friend, every moment that you spend not in this current present moment is a moment that you are missing out on the opportunity to build with your scene partner. Because the words that they're saying right now, or the nonverbal communication that they're offering you right now, please hear this. It is gold. It is gold. Even if it's not what you want to hear, even if it's frustrating, even if it sounds really familiar and you're tempted to believe that this is number 13 of the same conversation, it is pointing you at something that you can build with. It is pointing you at something that is important for your attention, okay? So stay present in this moment so you don't miss it. Number 4 is listening hygiene. So I never, ever, ever talk about listening skills, because a skill is like riding a bike or playing the piano or driving a stick shift or something like that, where in time your muscles can just do it without your brain having to really be checked in. That's not what listening is. It is very possible to learn how to imitate the open body posture, the head nodding, the whatever, but not be mentally checked in. So here's the thing. Listening is a lot more like hygiene. Back in the 6th or 7th grade, or whenever you do health class and they start talking about hygiene, you didn't get to learn what antiperspirant was and be like, okay, I'm clean now. I'm done. Check. I understand. That's not how it is, right? Proactive effort every day is what it takes to have good hygiene. And if you don't, you're going to stink. And that doesn't mean something's wrong with you. In fact, it means that your body is working as intended. So listening hygiene, it's the same thing. Guys, when chaos happens, our hygiene tends to fall by the wayside. So as an example, I am an adoptive parent, and our experience of becoming parents was that 2 children came to us through an emergency shelter placement. So we went from 0 kids to 2 kids in 45 minutes. They have special needs, and it was chaos. It was total chaos. And I remember at one point early on in the placement, they've been with us for 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I remember early on in the placement, I was digging through my hamper looking for like a swimsuit bottom or something, because I was out of clean undies. And I realized what I was doing and was like repulsed by what a disgusting, horrible thing this is. And then I started crying. And then I called someone from my church to be like, can you please come to my house and watch these children so I can do some dang laundry, take a shower, have a cup of coffee, etc. Why do I tell you this disgusting and maybe embarrassing story? Because good people with good intentions mess up on listening hygiene when there is chaos. Hygiene doesn't feel imperative all the time. It doesn't always feel about survival. Sometimes it feels like a nice to have. But I'm telling you that it will cripple your team if you're not being cognizant of this skill. And here's the other reason why I bring this up. You can understand that if someone else's behavior doesn't line up with who they really are, maybe there is some level of chaos happening, and it doesn't excuse them. I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that they need to be held accountable, because they do, but maybe you can find an inner well of grace to extend to this person if you understand that it's not about good people and bad people. It's not about people who fit and people who don't fit. It's about people who are today practicing good hygiene or not practicing good hygiene. And if we are honest, we all spend time in both of those categories, okay? Okay, so then lastly, view everything as a gift. So earlier I was talking about how you do not know what's going to happen in an improv scene. You do not know what's going to happen. And if you just decide that there's not a deal breaker, there's not something that can happen that will make it impossible for you to find a way forward, you'll find what you're looking for. And so if you decide that you are going to receive everything as a gift, it's a gift of clarity. It's a gift that's pointing you towards the next right question to ask. Maybe it's not pointing you towards the result. It's just pointing you to the next thing, right? We can get so discouraged when we are navigating the process of change with someone if it's not abundantly clear to us how this thing plays out yet. And this is the thing that I want to tell you. Of course, there are boundaries. Of course, there are things that people can do. We have a whole training called It Was Just a Joke about sexual harassment and harassment in the workplace. And so, I certainly understand there are things that happen that are deal breakers. So please don't extrapolate the analogy to a place it wasn't meant to go. Of course, there are things that you have to keep people safe. You have to make a decision right away. But most of the time, that's not what it's about, right? most of the time it's about the awkward, weird stuff that's making it so people don't work together as well as you know they could. And so if we can find a way to receive that weirdness as a gift that is pointing us in the direction of the next right question to ask or the next right thing to say in order to help us get closer to a really high functioning team, help this person get closer to latching on to the change journey in a way that will be empowering to them instead of condescending, well, then we've made a lot of progress, haven't we? So here's the thing. The most important part of successful improv, which by the way, all of life is improv. I don't know about you, but I didn't get a script on how to do life. All of life is improv. And the most important thing for doing it successfully is human connection. It's more important than proving you're the funniest person in the room. It's more important than getting your specific joke out there. The most important thing is human connection. I'm going to take a quick drink of water here, and then we were going to move on to motivational interviewing. Okay. So motivational interviewing, or MI, is a process for coaching change developed by different social scientists called Bill Miller and Steve Rollnick. And just to be clear, I'm not a MINT certified trainer. I am someone who has been in lots and lots of their trainings, and I appreciate their work a whole lot. But my point is, there is MINT means Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers. And there's trainings just all over. I've had the wonderful opportunity to go to trainings all over the country. Go to one of those. They'll do an even better job of teaching you all about this. I'm going to give you a high level overview as it pertains to the work that I do, right? Like my whole thing is equipping human-centered leaders to lead lives and companies that reflect their values. So I'm giving you a high level overview to help you be able to confront someone that is not on the same page with you culture-wise, but you can do some more digging if you'd like. So the first thing that they teach for effectively coaching someone to change is expressing empathy. And they really, I love that they have the body of research that they have, because empathy is such a soft skill. And in my world, I feel like I'm often confronted with people that feel really let down by being told how important empathy is, because it feels more powerful to arm wrestle someone, right? It feels more somehow validating if you can like take the upper hand somehow. But what is more effective is expressing empathy and developing that human connection that says, I get it. This is hard. This is hard stuff. But that's the first thing. Next is develop discrepancy. And I have found this step to be maybe more instructive than anything else. Develop discrepancy is when you have done a good job of finding out what their why is. You've done a good job of finding out what is important to them. And then you help them realize, hey, I hear you saying that your grandchildren are the most important things in the world to you, but you're also smoking 2 packs a day, and you understand that you have emphysema and you're dying, or you will be dying, or whatever. Of course, I'm being more blunt in this moment than I ever was on the phone. But the point is, you develop discrepancy by saying, do you see how your behavior is not serving the highest good, is not serving the purposes that you have outlined as being the things that are most important to you? So developing discrepancy is a very powerful thing, because you're allowing someone to realize how the values that they have articulated are not met by the behavior that they've demonstrated, okay? So develop discrepancy, really important. Avoid argument. So it is the natural human tendency to want to play devil's advocate. And this is one of the reasons why it doesn't work to just point out, oh, I see, well, this is the way. I mean, you might be experiencing this right now. You're being offered a whole bunch of tools right now of how you can engage with this person, and your brain might naturally be going, it likely is going to, oh, that won't work because, oh, that won't work because, oh, that won't work because. That's a natural thing that happens. And so what they encourage in motivational interviewing is, instead of just meeting someone at this place like, hey, you have to change or you're not going to be able to work here anymore. Here, why don't you try an anger management class? Why don't you do this webinar? Why don't you do whatever? Don't do that. Avoid argument. If you find someone that's continuing to fight with you or continuing, just hit the pause button. Decide, okay, we must have reached our emotional bandwidth for the conversation right now. You don't need to have time scarcity anxiety about, oh, this whole confrontation needs to happen right now. It doesn't. Life doesn't always play out that way. This is why dynamic accountability matters so much, because we can keep pivoting. We can keep adjusting with what are the needs of this person right now. And here's the thing. Sometimes, like, guys, it has been my job lots and lots and lots of times at this point to give somebody difficult feedback. And you wouldn't believe how incredibly powerful it is to just ask someone, what did you mean by that? Or, hey, in the meeting earlier, this is what I noticed. I'd like to give you some feedback about why I think that happened. Would that be okay? And then share something like, the way that you were speaking to them was very infantilizing. I had to have this conversation with a leader a while ago. Like, basically what I shared with him is, you talk to the people on your team the same way that I hear you talk to your children when they call you. They don't like that. You would not believe how often people are like, I know, or, ooh, my wife has told me the same thing before. Or, we're actually talking with a counselor because this is something that I'm continuing to work on. If you present something to someone in an emotionally safe way and give them the opportunity, guys, learning is vulnerable. It's vulnerable to admit that you need to change in front of someone. So don't get stuck in argument. Be willing to present feedback that's specific, but gentle. And expect that if they start arguing, it's okay to give them some space and hit the pause button if need be. And this kind of dovetails into the next point, which is roll with resistance. So instead of feeling like their initial arguments or their initial resistance, if they have any, is evidence of their lack of willingness to build, I mean, you never know. I've also experienced when people aren't immediately open, like I described before. I've also had plenty of experiences where people come back later and they're like, the longer I thought about it, the more I've realized that you're right. Or they've come up to me and been like, you know what, I want to try that conversation again. I'm telling you guys, real people that shout, that throw things, the big scary guy that everyone tells me is the problem. When I am in the room one-on-one with them, they surprise me with their ability to do this work. When I am committed to human connection first, making it my absolute job to express empathy and really build that human connection first, and allow that to guide everything else. So, and that is chiefly achieved by not panicking when you experience resistance. Okay, and then support self-efficacy and optimism. I feel like we've talked about that quite a bit, but they really have a lot of indications in their research that self-efficacy is a real thing, and staying committed to optimism is a real thing. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you now are the ORs. This is what they call ORs. These are the specific, like, tactical things that you can be doing in these conversations to help you get better results. So O is open-ended questions. So instead of starting meetings off with like, do you know why we're here? Or, that this is, exactly what we talked about before, right? Or, that this is not what it says in the employee handbook, right? Instead of kind of cornering people with these yes or no questions that are truthfully designed to push them further down the line, ask open-ended questions. I'm going to give you some examples in a minute. Affirmations. Guys, remember when I said the thing about look for evidence that they're capable instead of proof that they're not? Any opportunity that you get to affirm someone for, how much they care, or, how committed they are to the things that matter to them, that's how you really build that relationship that feels safe enough for them to do the vulnerable work of learning. Sometimes, I have just the strange experience, because I'll come into a company and I'll hear the same story from like 5 different perspectives, and it's so interesting because the same person, that one person is telling me he just will not budge, this is just how he is. Another person will tell me about a vulnerable conversation that they had with him in which he expressed an apology for that behavior and was able to be vulnerable in front of someone. If you are not seeing progress, there's a chance that this person just does not feel like they can be that vulnerable in front of you. And it's maybe you haven't done anything wrong necessarily. Maybe there's just more opportunity for progress if you really commit to the affirmations and the empathy piece of this. Okay, and then reflections is next. So guys, sometimes, remember when I said the thing about what did you mean by that? That's a way of asking a question that's kind of a reflection, because sometimes when I just say, what you just said is, this is a real thing from my real life, this is not made up. What you just said is the words, I'm surprised that you did so well because you're a woman. I'm kidding, it's just the most easy, obvious joke. Did you hear yourself say that? Sometimes just repeating back someone's exact words to them will help them see, whoa, that was very hurtful. Where we went in that conversation is, what would make you think that that is the most easy, obvious joke, that this went well because I am a woman or whatever. So reflections, that's the point of that. And then summaries. So summaries are different from a reflection, because a summary would be after someone has shared several different ideas, being like, okay, so thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. What I just heard you say is that part of the reason why it's really hard for you to be as patient as you'd like to be is that you are going through a lot at home right now. And the fact that you are navigating a divorce, the fact that you're really worried about what's going to happen next, is kind of eroding your emotional reserve right now. And it's making it really hard for you to be as patient as you'd like to be. Providing summaries that are highlighting the most important things that propel change forward, like helping someone identify what are the obstacles standing in the way between me and change. You don't need to summarize everything that happened. You're summarizing the things that demonstrate what's important to them, what's in the way, what needs to change, okay? Okay, so great. Find a Mint certified blog or training event, you'll thank me. I already kind of highlighted that. So am I question examples. So there are about 1,000, for instances, that could be dancing through your head right now. I'm just going to give you some examples of questions that I have found in various situations. These are not listed in progressive order, just to be clear. Various different situations that I've used, and these have been very helpful. So the first thing is to ask someone, what is most important to you about our culture? And then listen. So the thing is, guys, ask a real question and then listen. Don't just be waiting for your turn to talk. Listen to this person. Here's what's most important to me. And then say the thing, like the value that has actually been violated by their behavior. When you are really clear on not just what they did wrong, but why that thing matters, that's a really good thing to fill in the blank here. Here's what's most important to me. What happens in your head hearing me say that? And I have the example that I wanted to use here is what's most important to me. And in that case, this was with a client. So it's like, what's most important to the person that hired me to do this coaching with you is servant leadership. And when I asked him what happens in your head hearing me say that, he said, it's frustrating because I feel like servant leadership can be a priority when we're not losing money every month. That was powerful. That was an honest answer. That pointed us in the direction of, you feel like culture is a luxury that you can have once these core business things get put in place. Where I'm coming from with this is culture is what will help you get there, because right now you have people that aren't working well together. You're not delegating effectively to other people because you don't trust them. Getting some of these cultural tenets in place is what will help you achieve what you want to achieve. It's not icing on the cake once we do all the grunt work. It's how we navigate the grunt work, right? Okay, what would have to be true in order for XYZ change to be your number one priority? Now, here is where I differ a little bit from what Miller and Rolnick are going to teach you if you do go ahead and do some MI trainings, because they often include a Likert style question here where they're like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is this change to you right now? And then they ask, what would have to happen in order for that change to be even one number more important? What I have found in my work is that we need to see results a little bit faster than that. And sometimes people just get lost in, what is the difference between a 3 and a 4? Does anybody know? I don't know. So I like to ask the question, what would have to be true in order for this change to be your number one priority? I find that people start telling me the important stuff, like we would need to be in the black or whatever, that points us in the direction more effectively when I just ask it like that. And then what do you need in order to maintain this outcome? So these questions are all based on different readiness, different stages in that readiness to change. But if someone is in preparation stage, then we can start talking about, you know, what's it going to look like? Let's imagine, or if they're in action, you know, what's it going to take for you to really be able to do this? Because you are able, you are capable. You've proven to yourself that you're capable of getting painful feedback without slamming the door and storming out. So what do we need to have in place in order for you to be able to keep doing that? I find that those conversations are best had over lattes and mojitos, but I'll leave that to you. So those are just some examples of MI questions. I hope that's helpful to see. Quick recap of some best practices, because I want to leave time for you guys to ask some questions if you have them. The number one thing here is I want you guys to start coaching to the next bucket, not to the finish line. Trust that process. Trust that it's safe to just get that person out of ambivalence. Guys, if you can help someone get out of ambivalence or get out of total lack of awareness, that's a victory. That is a huge victory. So coach to the next bucket. Explore their values and then connect the ways in which change supports their desires. That is a really powerful part of the trans-theoretical model and of motivational interviewing. Next is create shared plans for action, maintenance, and relapse. Stop feeling like when someone does it wrong after they swore to you they were going to do it right, that means they don't care, or that's another strike or something like that. It's just a part of the process. It happens. So have a plan for what we'll do. And then build evenly throughout the conversation. Excuse me, just like we talked about earlier in improv, we say bring a brick, not a cathedral. The more we can implement that thinking and realize this is my scene partner, what we are doing right now is just building a scene, and we're going to do it piece by piece by piece by piece. It is safe for me to trust that process instead of coming in, asserting power and, you know, trying to maintain the upper hand and whatever. And then be sure that you are prioritizing connection over progress. And I know how scary this feels. It feels scary to say, I am more committed to connecting with this person and to making sure that they know they are seen and heard. I am more committed to that mission than I am committed to seeing the results. But here's what I want you to understand. It might sound counterintuitive, but trusting that process of connection first, that's how we get the results. And you do not have to take my word for it. I hope you screenshotted Miller and Rolnick and Prochaska and DiClemente. You can read their research. I mean, that solid foundation of empathy and human connection, that's where it's at. That is what gives people the really safe space to learn. And then be consistent in your follow through, because it's one thing to have mustered the courage to say these things out loud to someone. And I know it's a scary thing to do, but it's one thing to have mustered the courage to do that. And it's another thing to a few days later be like, hey, I've been thinking about that. Just so you know, I'm still here for you, whatever you need or whatever. Be consistent in the follow through. So if at this point you are thinking any of the following, I wish I were more confident in these delicate and sensitive conversations, or our culture is not currently reflecting my core values and Todd/Karen is not the only issue. Whoever this person is, that it's like their department is being terrorized or their team is just like suffering. You're aware they're not, that stuff is pointing at other stuff, you know? And you're just thinking like, I really want that to stop and I don't know where to get started. Or you're thinking, I need more tactical support and some concrete strategies for delivering on culture promises consistently. I really hope you'll consider joining us in either the Leading Beyond coaching program. So that's an individual one-on-one coaching program that I do with my clients, or Achieving Culture Continuity. Now that is a public cohort, and we have another one coming up at the beginning of June. This is where you are going to learn on a really holistic level, what can you be doing to consistently be delivering on your culture promises? How can you be building a culture that truly is inclusive, that really is harnessing the creative powerhouse that you have available to you in your team. What are the best practices and ways that you can be doing that using this mindful improv methodology? This cohort specifically exists to help people address these 1 or 2 areas of their company that are not in alignment with their values. And they know this is deflating people. This is how we are losing people. This is how we are losing speed. We want to address those issues so that we have a consistent employer brand throughout our company. That's really what that public cohort seeks to do. It's a 5-week-long program. It's really, really great. I love it so much. So I hope that you'll take some time to learn more about that. Let me get out of the share mode so I can see your questions. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like kind of specifically to hear about in their situation? I'm happy to stay on, but if you need to jump off, that's fine too. I'll keep the recording going so you can hear what people had to say. Okay, here's one. Have you ever run into a situation where a person was just unwilling to change? Thank you, Amy. So yeah, have I run into a situation where someone was unwilling? I'm going to say it like this. I have run into a situation where someone was unready. And what that means is that even with the framework in place, this person was not in a situation, like the culture as it stood at that company was not the safe environment that they needed in order to do the vulnerable work of changing. So the reality is that a person's behavior is not just about them. It's also about the consequences that have already manifested because of their behavior, right? So now people treat them a certain way, and now certain things are in place that remind them of who they've been, And so sometimes the safest thing for everyone is to part ways. So my work is absolutely not about making it so that we never fire bullies. And I have been the one to consult with clients as they are doing the very scary thing of firing their highest performer on something, because they cannot let this person poison the water hole for everyone. I will say that it is much more common that we can re-engage this person and that we can right the ship. It just requires a level of vulnerability from that person and from the surrounding leadership that sometimes people just aren't ready to do. So I hope that's helpful. I mean, the thing is that it's important to hear the difference between unwilling and unready, because when we stick to this framework, and we really solicit information from this person about I'm glad that was helpful. And we really solicit information from this person about what's going on. Like, guys, I'm talking about the real stuff. I'm talking about the shouting behavior, the door slamming behavior, the throwing stuff at people behavior. That's real, and we can't let that stuff happen. But that behavior is about something. It's about trauma quite often. It's about opportunities that this person needs to heal and to forgive their parents, past bosses that they've had. So when we can get in there and really do the real forgiveness work, I mean, that's when we make some real progress. So, and that's, by the way, the Leading Beyond coaching program. I should have said this sooner, but now everyone will hear it in the thing. Please don't try to enroll Todd or Karen. That's not what it's for. The Leading Beyond coaching program really gets into this heart-centered work, but it's for the people who are ready. It's not a program where you can force someone else into it and then, hope that I will have this silver bullet. At the end of the day, the people who do the best work in that program and who just leave feeling ready for what's next, personally and at work, they are feeling like their lives have been transformed. The people who have that experience in the coaching program are usually the people who I'm sorry, I got distracted by a question. They're the people who independently are ready to do that forgiveness work, that really heart-centered work of being like, what is holding me back? And I am ready to identify what those things are, and I'm ready to really take action on some proactive forgiveness. And I have mindful improv processes that I teach. I have like a very specific way that I teach the forgiveness journey as well. And I find that to be the thing that really moves the needle the most in feeling more confident and in, leading in alignment more consistently. And that's what we do in that program. But don't enroll Todd or Karen. Okay, so let's see. How can you get someone above you to see that they may need to let their top performer go to move the culture forward? Okay, so thank you for that question. The way that I would do that, the way that I have done that in the past, is by getting in alignment on the why. So really what it is that what people tend to do is point out to the leadership above them all the specific behaviors that are undesired. And so then they spend a lot of time talking with their leadership about, but they're doing this and this and this and this. So if you can present it to leadership in a way that says, this is what we care about, this is our shared why, really leaning in on that culture vision, that culture-driven vision of people that are enthusiastic and therefore pitch their bold ideas and therefore propel the company forward. That is what we need. That is what you desire the most, right? And show them the ways that this person is moving counter to that. That is what is going to motivate them to either get more proactive about re-engaging, or if you can get to a place that says, look, this person is not in an environment where they can thrive. They are not in an environment where they can do the work that they would otherwise be doing. And I don't know, Linda, what your office culture is like, but I have in the past worked with clients where I've said things to them because it was appropriate in that relationship, like, are you willing to hold this person back in their life? I mean, are you willing to be at a place that says, I don't care if this person gets the help that they need with their anger management or whatever? Is that what you're willing to say? Because every day that we allow to go by and we allow this person to continue thinking that they can just coast on their sales numbers and not live a full, whole, healthy life, we are doing this person a disservice. Big picture, what do we want to be about on this planet? Not every company wants to go there or can go there, but most leaders, I haven't yet run into a situation where when we're literally talking about like big scale performance, here's one thing, Linda, that I've said that was helpful. I've said it this way sometimes. So are you willing to say that we only need one high performer? Are you willing to say that? Because every amount of time that we let this person continue deflating other people and holding back other people, for all we know, there would be someone else that would be the top performer if this person was gone. There may be 3 someone's else that would be the top performer. Every time that we let this person get away with this bad behavior, we are investing in a company that says, just one high performer for me, please. We only need just the one. And sometimes saying it that way can help someone realize, oh, that's not what we want at all. We would love to have 3 top performers, 5 top performers, whatever it is. So I hope that's helpful. That might be how I would say that. Lori says, excellent as always. Thank you, Lori. Okay, just a lovely, encouraging message from Lori. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Any other questions? Linda, I'm glad that was helpful. I know we're over time. I'm happy. My kids are elsewhere right now, so I have a few minutes to hang in there if there's any other questions, but it looks like you guys are checking out. So great. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will send you an email with more information about both of those programs. Please check them out. I love doing this work with people. It's why I'm on this planet, and I would love to get to know you better and really support you in an even more holistic sense in consistently delivering on your culture promises, because that's what's going to get you where you want to be. All right. Thanks, guys.